Cheers.
Cheers.
This is peace settlement right before this discussion.
Yeah, this is the last time that we're nice to each other. This will be a hot debate.
Alrighty. Welcome everyone to those watching the TechBrew podcast, the podcast where we blend today's world of technology with the aroma of coffee, plus a deep dive into latest tech trends, thought-provoking discussions, and headlines. My name is Motorcon Trash, and I'm with my co-host
Cam.
Cam.
I like how yours was like, woo, and I was like,
yeah. Cam. Hi, I'm here, I guess. Hello. So, as you could tell, partake viewers of the title of this episode. Yeah, this is gonna be a very interesting one, and I thought just kind of than our regular episodes, just kind of mix it up a little bit,
right.
Do something different. So
yeah, we test the level of our friendship. See if we can survive after this. No, I'm kidding.
No, in perspective, us as buddies, we have different opinions and things like that. But all in all, today it's just going to be like just seeing what we agree on, whatnot, and just things like that. And that's kind of the basis of this podcast, just to have these kind of discussions about
absolutely.
Things like that, and it's technology related,
right?
But yeah, we'll just get right into it. And so yeah, we didn't really do any script or anything.
No, this is off the script. This episode,
we kind of just took some time, like on our own, to do our own research. Didn't really exchange information at all. Yeah. So we're just gonna dive right into it. So I'll let you go. I'll let you go first, Cameron. About tell me some things about Apple.
Okay. Well, I want to preface this. One of the things that we need to specify is that to make it more interesting, I had the idea that I would come up as an Android user. I would come up with pros and cons of Apple products. And as an iPhone user, you would come up with pros and cons of Android products.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to actually find pros of Apple and agree with them. Not necessarily agree with them, but I had to find pros of Apple, and I'm very anti-Apple. So it was really, really interesting. But some of the pros of Apple versus Android, there's quite a few. Surprisingly, and I will give it to Apple. They have certain things they do better than Android. Generally, the iOS operating system works smoother with their products. All of their OSs, their Mac OS or iOS, they generally work better because they only have to go on only three or four generations worth of product, and it's the same operating system. So if you have the iOS 18, it looks exactly the same whether you have the iPhone 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's literally the same operating system. And I guess this is another positive for some people. iPhone generally is less customizable than Android, but for a lot of people that's a positive. It has several customization options, but some people like just a phone that works. It's I like how it looks, I like how it works. I don't necessarily need to design it in a way that fits me as a user. I like how it feels, whereas Android has a lot of customization options, which can be overbearing. I will give you that. It can be overwhelming to have so many customization options. Updates are usually faster too, like iOS, and security updates for Apple are generally faster, because they don't have to cater to different manufacturers like Samsung and Sony Google, so they can get out updates faster, and generally they don't break as often as Android. And I think the most obvious to most people is the accessories. If you go on Amazon or any website and you're looking for an iPhone or you're looking for a phone case, you're gonna find every brand makes iPhone phone cases for like the last 3 generations of phones. It's a lot harder to find, and I've had experience with this personally. It's a lot harder to find phone cases and just accessories in general for Android-based devices because there's like a billion different manufacturers that make Androids that put buttons in different spots, and it is quite impossible to make all of those changes. So yeah, Apple does have a better market when it comes to headphones and not headphones, but like phone cases and just all the customization stuff, accessories that you can add to iPhone are a lot easier to find them. So the ecosystem, this is a big one, right? A lot of Android users, such as myself, complain about the ecosystem. Apple works with Apple. That's about it. If you've got an Apple product, you're better off buying other Apple products like their laptops, their tablets, because they will work in unison a lot better than if you had an iPhone and like an Android tablet. Now they will work, but the connectivity and the seamless like workflow that Apple has is arguably better than Android because Android has a lot of manufacturers. And they don't always play nice. So the iPhone ecosystem is probably the best ecosystem out there right now. Now that being said, little thing here. That doesn't give you a lot of customization options for what you can use, but that's you. That's the thing that you have to say because you're the Android pro and con guy, and I'm the iPhone pro and con guy for today. But yes, the ecosystem. They're probably their biggest marketing thing is the ecosystem, how everything just works. And yeah, arguably so. The ecosystem, the iPhone tablet, if you want to transfer photos or work documents from iPhone to the Mac or to the tablet, whatever, it works very well. They've definitely mastered the art of a whole entire thing, the whole connectivity of devices. Another thing that I don't personally use the Android version of this because my car doesn't support it, but CarPlay, Apple's CarPlay, being able to connect your phone to your Bluetooth radio and that functionality, I think Apple does better than Google. I've seen Android Auto, which is Google's CarPlay, and it's all right. It's okay. It definitely isn't the best, like when it comes to like UI and connectivity. Sometimes your Bluetooth it'll disconnect you, and sometimes it's not as optimized. I will say that. I agree with that statement. Apple CarPlay is better. Personally, I don't use any sort of car connectivity. I mean, I Bluetooth my phone to my radio, but my radio doesn't have a screen on it, so it's just to play music. But that's just a Bluetooth thing. Both phones can do that. There's no fight there. But the Android Auto, I believe, is not quite as good as CarPlay, and that also goes with contactless payments. Apple Pay is arguably the widest used contactless payment option. Matter of fact, 85% of retailers in the United States accept Apple Pay. I don't know what the percentage is for Google Pay, but I know Google Pay. I don't use Google Pay mostly because I just don't use contactless payment. I don't. I have my own issues with it. But, but as a service, Apple contactless pay, their Apple Pay, is definitely a lot more rounded and a lot lot better designed than Google Pay. I don't feel like Google Pay is really looked at very often. Like, I don't think they really focus on it. Like, they have like a working system, and then they're like, okay, we're done. So I've just never bothered with it. But Apple definitely has the market when it comes to contactless pay. So
I remember hearing about it. I think it was probably a couple years ago. I personally never used it because, well, at the time I kind of had an older iPhone that not necessarily didn't update, but it just didn't have all those requirements on the iPhone that I had. But yeah, I remember at the time, especially with Apple Wallet, you could literally just have like a digital version of your debit or credit card, and then you can go up to register or whatever and just hit it whatever with your phone, and then it does the Face ID feature, and then it's like you're done. I personally never used it before because I'm just kind of more the old fashioned way, just using a physical card or just paying in cash. So
and to be honest with you, in my belief, I mean they've had studies on this too, so it's kind of semi-fact. I mean, physical cards are generally going to be more secure than contactless payment, because contactless payment, regardless if it's iPhone or Android, essentially all it's using is NFC, which is just near field communication, which just means that if your device is, I don't know how many inches, I think I used to know, if it's like 6 inches away from the device, it'll connect, it'll create a short connection, and that's where that payment comes in. But scammers make devices fairly easily that they can walk up right next to you, accidentally bump into you, and connect. Your phone is close enough, it'll make that quick connection, and they can, they have ways of pulling money out of your account. Not that it happens it probably does happen every day, but probably wouldn't happen in the area that we're in as often, because we're not that in a big of an area. But it is possible. It is that's what NFC is. It's just your phone is open to connections less than 6 inches away or whatever it is, or 2 feet away. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's just something we don't really know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why and the same thing applies to debit cards and credit cards that have the chip. It's essentially the same thing. The chip is NFC. It's an NFC chip, which is why they make RFID protective sleeves for cards. If you ever get like a debit card and it comes like in a little paper sleeve or a little plastic sleeve, that sleeve is designed to block communication from any scammer. You can't really do that with your phone. I mean, I guess they could have phone cases that do that, but then you wouldn't really be able to ever use contactless payment because you'd have to take your phone out of the case. But essentially, those things as blockers are just like Faraday cages. They don't allow signal to go in or out. But so I've never been a supporter of contactless payment, regardless of if it's Apple or Android. I'd rather use physical card or physical cash. Another thing about Apple that arguably they do better, they have the iPhone store, where you can go and they have the Genius Bar. You really can't do that with Android. You just have to go to your phone carrier if you have any Android specific issues, or submit a ticket online to Google. Whereas the iPhone store is, I mean, if you've been in an iPhone store, if you've seen an iPhone store, they're very like futuristic look, very like sleek and like bright lights, and it's like an open space, and generally most issues can be solved and fixed there. If you have any issues with your iPhone, most of the people there will either be able to fix your issue, or if the fix is you need a new iPhone, that you'll have a new iPhone with all your information on it in less than an hour. Can't really do that with Android phones. You just kind of have to go to your carrier, go through there. And, I don't know which one's faster, but iPhone definitely makes it a more welcoming experience than Android users. I've always wanted to go into an iPhone store because I see them at our local mall. They got that giant tunnel that we have. I've always wanted to go in there, but I hate Apple. And, I don't want to get like surrounded by people. But they do make it a very welcoming experience. They actually even have, I didn't know this until I did some research, at pretty much all Apple locations or Apple stores, they have free classes where they will teach you how to use whatever iPhone or whatever Apple product you are interested in. Like it's a whole course. And like, here's every feature of the iPhone. Here's how to use the TV Apple OS or TV OS, whatever they call it. It's like their Apple TV, or their MacBooks, their tablets, their iPads, whatever. They will literally like sit down with you for like an hour and be like, here's every feature of this product, and here's how this generation is basically the same as the last generation. So which is pretty cool. You really can't do that with Android. In all honesty, they say that like Androids are pretty much the same across the board, and that's semi-true. Generally, things like settings, menus are generally in the same spot amongst manufacturers and Android. Not always, so that can be a big red flag for people. And sometimes it's the same setting that's just named differently. Like I know Google Pixel has some setting options, and like Samsung has setting options, and you'll look at the names of the same setting, and they're named differently. And sometimes that can be like, is that correlating to the same options? Like, am I getting the same result if I, whereas Apple iOS, if you have an iOS device, it's every iPhone, doesn't matter if it's a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15. If you've got iOS 18, which is the one that's not out yet, if you've got iOS 18, it's the same operating system. It doesn't change based off of what phone you have, if you've got an older phone or a newer phone. Generally, when it comes to Apple, they will support iOS updates, I think, like something like 5 or 7 years. So if you've got like an iPhone, like let's say you got an iPhone 15 right now, you're going to have the next 7 years worth of iOS updates, which is insane. The hardware they have in their phones are designed to support that kind of thing. Whereas with Android, I think recently, Samsung in particular, they were the worst about updating Android when it came to how many updates you got on a phone before you had to get the newest phone. It used to be 2. So like, let's say you're on Android. What is the newest one right now? I think Android. I don't know the current version of Android right now. I think it's 15 or 16. They're basically right in line with iOS. I think it's Android 15 is the newest one. So it used to be if you had a Samsung phone, specifically Samsung, and it came with Android 15, you'd get 16 and 17. You'd get up to Android 17. After Android 17, you'd have to get the newest generation of phone. Now, the newest generation of phone would probably come with 16 or 17, depending on when they release it, and then that phone would obviously get 2 more updates. Apple does like 7 years. So if you have an iPhone 10 that stock came with like iOS 12, you're going to get all the way up to iOS 18 or whatever. I don't know what generation it came with, but you're going to get 7 years of operating system updates. Whereas most Android developers or manufacturers, I think the biggest one is 4 years. I think Google Pixel only does 4 or 5 years. And Samsung just now adopted that system. So now, like the phone I have, it's a Samsung device. It'll get 4 years worth of operating system updates instead of 2. So in that instance, Apple can be better because you're getting the longevity of your phone will last longer because you're getting the newer features without having to get a new phone every 2 years. So,
see, yeah, I've known a couple people that were with some kind of plan or something with, kind of with Apple, but more plans for obviously like big phone cellular companies that always do, like deals all the time. We always see like commercials for all kinds of deals that they have for obviously newer stuff coming out. And I've known a couple people. I don't know if you're the same way, but I guess just for me growing up, I'm just kind of more like, let's say tomorrow I get, for me, the brand new iPhone 15. I'm going to use that until it just stops,
until it disintegrates, yeah.
And then, I will get, to me, I'm more of like, to me, I don't really just go with the flow with having this phone, brand new phone, and then a couple months later, like during Christmas, it's like, okay, now I got a brand new phone. Then I got this, and it's just like
365 days.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'd rather just use the thing for as long as I possibly can to its, the end of its lifetime,
Right, until it physically will stop turning on.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, there you go. I needed a new one or something, And then at that point, if I get one, then like Apple's like iPhone 26, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm like, okay.
So that's that was some of the pros, and I'm sure there's several others that I didn't talk about. But if you want, I can start talking about some of the cons as well.
Go ahead.
My favorite part. So, no, I'm kidding. So here's 40 pages worth of cons. No. Now this con isn't necessarily true all the time. It really depends on what Samsung or what Android releases relative at the same time. But generally, iPhones are more expensive. In some Apple products are more expensive overall, generally.
Okay.
Now, between the phones, they are kind of neck and neck. They're kind of right at the same price, but the tablets and like the iMacs and everything, those can be quite expensive. And personally, you don't get, in my opinion, someone who does have some technical knowledge on like how to build computers and stuff like that, the price you're paying for what you're getting for, I don't really feel like is great. I feel like you're also, and I'm a big believer of, you're not paying for the product, you're paying for the name. So like with Apple, a lot of the price tag is just because it's Apple. Mm-hmm. In my eyes. This is where I get the dog on Apple for a little bit, thankfully. But a lot, in my eyes, and a lot of Android people's eyes, with iPhone, you're paying for the name Apple. That's part of the price tag, which is absurd. The name Apple shouldn't charge an additional $200 per product or whatever it is. And another thing, kind of go back to the customization. That's a pro and a con. It's like, if you are one who likes customization, if you like to fine tune your phone more, definitely Android over iPhone. Because Android has a lot more customization options, and if you feel like it's too many customization options, then go to Apple. They're a good quality phone. So it's really kind of how you feel about how much personality you want out of your phone, like physically how it looks. And another thing with Apple is all of their products are proprietary. All of the apps that they make that are Apple branded, they're all proprietary. They are they have their own file format. They have their own iMessage. That's when we were just talking about. They have their own system for text messaging, which is iMessage. Android has RCS, which is adopted amongst all Android devices. And I don't know the specifics of which one's more secure than the other, but I do know that iPhone intentionally does not want to include RCS compatibility because they wanted to make it look like iPhone's better than Android. And another thing is the repairability of Apple products. I am very repair your own device, like have the option to repair my own device, because I like learning. I like learning about technology. And so I like looking up like teardowns of like Samsung products or Apple products or Android products, just products in general. I like seeing like how they're built. Apple doesn't really like when you mess around with repairing your own device. They kind of hate it. because they can't really control it. So you have to take it to an Apple store to do any sort of repair, and then that repair, if your phone's not in warranty, that repair cost is just astronomical. Android doesn't care. If I threw my phone across the wall right now and broke it in half, I can find accepted third-party sellers to buy like the camera module or like the screen or like the frame. I can buy those things with my own money, repair my own phone, and Android's like, cool, we don't care. Apple, not so much. Apple, they like to control the whole process of you owning a phone, from you buying it to you wanting to get it fixed, is all through Apple, which can be fine for some people if they don't want to mess with it, if they're too afraid to mess with it, or if they're not one that really like I don't do technical stuff. That's fine, great, get an Apple phone. But if you are one that likes to explore how devices are made and how technology works and stuff, Android. Another thing that I completely forgot even existed, because I haven't had anything Apple product in forever, is all of, at least for a while, I think they're starting to stray away from it as like a main source for everything. But like all of your devices are all interconnected to iTunes. Like everything has to be done through iTunes, at least for the longest time. And again, I think they're straying away from that. But that kind of used to be really annoying. Like you like to mess with like your photos and your pictures and everything, to move them off of your computer and everything. Always had to be done through iTunes, and iTunes looks like crap in my eyes. It did back in the day anyway. It probably looks better now. So obviously another big thing is Apple, like I stated earlier, Apple works with Apple. That's where they do it best. So if Apple product is trying to communicate with an Android product in any way, shape, or form, or just a third-party product like headphones or whatever, that aren't Apple branded or Apple specific, they don't tend to like that. A lot of times, I know this at least back in the olden days, the phone I had before the one I had now had a headphone jack, and the one Apple product that I actually liked was the headphones. What are they called? The wired headphones, the iEar or whatever they call it. Just the old school wired headphones that had like the little mic on it, the little plus and minus volume.
Oh yeah.
Standard iPhone headphones they had for 40,000 years. I love those things. Those actually fit my ear. Right now they got the wireless ones that like only work with Android. I mean, they work with Apple. They do work with Android, but they limit a lot of things. And that's the thing. I know when I had an Android phone that had a headphone jack, I had the wired headphones that were the Apple branded, and the volume up and down volume tabs would not work. And I later learned that wasn't they were broken. Apple specifically turns that off if you're not an Apple phone. Like that particular function, you can play and pause with the middle button, but the plus and minus, the volume did not work, and that was specifically because they didn't want it to, which was really annoying. So Apple tends to turn off features if it's trying to be used on a non-Apple device. This is if you're in the tech sphere, this is pretty common knowledge. They tend to restrict what can be done, and it's not because it's not compatible. They specifically turn it off. They specifically don't allow it. You have to get the phone to work with, or else you're not going to get all the features. Not really DLC, but and that's kind of annoying. And with Android, Android allows pretty much any manufacturer to manufacture whatever they want, and it'll fully work for Android. I could take Samsung headphones and work them to its full capacity on a Google Pixel. So
right.
Now this next thing is not as much important to me, but gaming. Gaming on Apple, first off, has never really been a thing. If you want to look back at like when they originally announced the Apple desktop, whatever they call it, the iMac, whatever, or the Macintosh. Their naming scheme, first off, is horrid, by the way, because they have the iMac, they have the Macintosh, they have like the I. It's just too much I. But when they first, and I think I know why. So when they first, back when Steve Jobs was still alive, and they had unveiled a new Apple desktop computer back in the 90s. And in the presentation for it, now this is a story that you may know. Back in like the late 90s, they had advertised that basically a alien space shooter game was going to be launching with the iMac, this version of iMac back in the 90s. Well, Microsoft saw that, and they were like, no. So they contacted the company, the game development company that made that game, and they're like, hey, we own you now. You're going to develop this game for our new product, the Xbox. And that became Halo. You can find on YouTube footage of Macworld from 1998, 1997, or whatever they called their convention, where Steve Jobs is literally talking about a beta version of Halo that looks a lot crappier than when it was released on Xbox, or a lot more basic than what was eventually released on Xbox. You can see him talking about Halo. Actually, at the time, it wasn't even called Halo; it was called something else. But he was like, "Yeah, you can now game on Apple." And when Bill Gates took that away, I don't think they ever really tried to push gaming on Apple anymore. They just like completely stopped. They didn't promote it on anything. Like their desktops aren't designed, although they can play games, they aren't designed for games. A lot of their what they push is productivity, design, Photoshop, editing software. They do more business productivity, and that also correlates. I know we had an episode where we were talking about the Apple Vision Pro. One of the things that we mentioned was it's not a gaming VR headset. It's not intended for games. It's intended for business and product management. So it's more of a business VR headset. I think they just after that Halo incident, they just stopped doing like game stuff, which is fine. Absolutely. And I'm not one who does like hardcore gaming on my phone. That to me just doesn't make sense because there's not a lot you can do there. And there's not a lot of like games that are on mobile that would not be better if they were on like Xbox or PlayStation. I know they have like Call of Duty. They like Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG Mobile. They all kind of suck because you're very limited. You're very limited on what you can do in a mobile game, which is why if you look at the mobile store for Apple and Android, a lot of the better games on there are lower quality graphically. They're like 8-bit RPG game. I'm not playing Call of Duty on a phone. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that. That's just no. I'm not playing Halo on a phone. I'm not playing any sort of. I'm not playing RuneScape. They had RuneScape on a phone, which is a pretty cool idea because RuneScape is kind of an older, stylized looking game. But to me, it was just like, eh. So gaming on a mobile I don't think really will ever reach the same level as it will on like PC or PlayStation or Xbox.
I mean, mainly for me, I remember kind of the biggest game on Apple at the time, like when I was usually sometimes if I was with my mom at work or something, or just like after school, it would be like Flappy Birds or something.
Right.
That was kind of like one of the biggest at the time, and
that can be played on a potato.
Yeah, and I remember, but I mean, besides like PUBG or Call of Duty, things like that, or what was that one, Slither.io?
Oh yeah, Slither.io. Any of the .io games are very basic. They can run on a potato.
Yeah, those are pretty much perfect. And I would say the same. Like if it's just a simple like Slither.io or Flappy Birds or you remember Doodle Jump?
I do remember Doodle Jump.
I was so addicted to that.
I remember playing Cut the Rope.
I didn't really play that much, but I remember hearing about it.
Yeah. I remember, this is a little off topic, not really, but I remember going back to like when developers who make like AAA games try to make a mobile version, like Call of Duty or PUBG or RuneScape. I remember to this day watching Blizzard for some reason decide to make a Diablo mobile game. I can't remember what it was called. It might have been Diablo Immortal, but I can't remember. But they made a Diablo mobile game, and I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be like the next Diablo, like in the story. So it was supposed to be like Diablo 3 or 4 or whatever. And it was at like it was at BlizzCon, which has a Q&A section. Right after they announced all of the Blizzard stuff, it had a Q&A, and they just got like hounded. Like people were like, "This is the stupidest thing you guys have ever done." Like to their face, like there's like it's like, is this a joke? This is horrible. This is good. Yeah, no one plays that mobile game. I mean, it does have a player base because some idiot's gonna play it, but it's like, yeah, AAA studios should never do anything mobile, with the exception of one game. I will say there's one game that Blizzard has done on mobile that works flawlessly, and that is Hearthstone, because that's all that is just it's a card game. But I've played Hearthstone, and I think it's a free game, which is completely free. I've played Hearthstone on my phone and on a tablet, and it's also on PC. That game is designed in such a way that it works on mobile perfectly fine. It's just like a battle game. It's like a Yu-Gi-Oh. You have cards. The card has a monster on it. The monster has mana, has health, has an attack. You play it down, a little creature comes up and attacks the other. I mean, it's perfectly designed for mobile. That's like the one and only game that from a AAA studio that I think has worked successfully that I can think of. But in general, gaming on mobile on both sides, Apple and Android, I believe there shouldn't really be a market for it because the technology is not there. You're shrinking down such a large game into little tiny screen. Now, if the game is already 8-bit or if it's already like a lower quality game, then yeah, you could probably make it work. Like if it's like Undertale style or like Shovel Knight or I can't think of any other games. Something in those like arcadey style games, then yeah, that'd be fine. Don't put like Assassin's Creed on mobile. That's not a thing yet, but just don't put Assassin's Creed. Don't put Call of Duty like Call of Duty Online is on mobile, but don't put Call of Duty like campaign on mobile. If you're gonna do anything that's mobile, develop a handheld like the Switch or like the ROG Ally or like the Steam Deck, or just put them on those games. I think they are. I think the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck both can play like the newest Call of Duty because it's still a PC game. It's just a smaller form factor. So it's not technically mobile. But if you're going to do anything small screen, do it on a handheld. Don't do it on the phone. Handheld is where it's at.
Right. I would agree. Yeah.
But anyway, those are my pros and cons. Some of them I could go on. I have more in my head. But those I've already taken up a full recording's worth of talking. So now it's your turn. So tell us about
that's all we have here today.
Tell us about the awesome, exciting, exploding world of Android. You're like, Android block. Just start puking. Okay, Apple user, tell us about Android. Please tell me how it's so much better. I'm excited to listen.
Put me on the spotlight here.
Right, I'm just astounded to listen to what you have to say about my favorite operating system.
It's getting a little toasty in here.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Okay. Tell us about the pros of Android that you have found.
So yeah, I'll start with some pros. So obviously, like I've mentioned, yeah, I've mainly grown up as iPhone user.
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
And I will say one thing, not to cut you off, but if you grew up iPhone, generally you have a better experience staying iPhone. Same thing applies with Android. Had my first smartphone been an iPhone, I would probably still be an iPhone user. I think that's what it comes down to, because like our generation, just really quick, we grew up in the smartphone era. So like we didn't have, granted, my first cell phone was a Razr flip phone, but smartphones were a thing. Smartphone has been invented since 2007, if not even earlier than that. But I was introduced to Android first, and every single phone after that has been an Android phone that I've had. So I've grown accustomed to it. So I think if you start your journey in one lane or the other, that's generally where you tend to stay. So I just wanted to add that there.
I think mine was probably when I was like 15 or 16, but it wasn't really a BlueBerry, but it was one of those slide up little keyboard.
Oh yeah, like the pick or whatever it's called.
Yeah, so you could either do it like one-sided, turn it.
Yeah, I have
yeah, that was my first phone.
Yeah,
wasn't too bad. But,
right.
But yeah, I'll just go with pros. Obviously, yeah, kind of the biggest thing with them, kind of like what you were talking about, is a lot of for Samsung, a lot of the options, you have tons of customized things. You have, like, just compared to Apple, it's like if a new Apple product comes out, technically, I'm just throwing it out there, it's like usually like 2 or 3 different colors, or like 1 or 2 different shades, and then it's like that's kind of it. But with Android, you do get multiple colors and different
5 or 6 per phone.
Yeah, I mean, it does a generic like white, black, or like a silver color, and then with Samsung, but you get like a cream color, or like a
green, a blue, a red, an orange.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, yeah, like just in general, basically with this whole episode, it's like it basically boils down to generic. There's a lot of people that have just I just want this customization. I only want this kind of color, and that's all I want. But yeah, obviously you have people on the other side that are like, I want this customization, I want this, and this, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I would technically agree. You have a lot more open field with Samsung stuff if you're wanting to have more options. But yeah, I would probably say for like older generations too, they're like, I don't really want that. I just want something basic.
Right. I just pull out the phone. I pull out the phone. Boom! I can text and call.
Right, and it's just like which is fine, yeah. And I would probably say too. I think you probably mentioned it. It's like if there's a lot more people like that study wise, then it's just like I think for a lot of people they're like, okay, well, we'll probably just recommend you an iPhone because that seems more just compatible in your field, or like your requirements, I should say, what you're wanting. Most of the time it's like, okay, well, we'll just see what kind of Apple options we can give you or something. But yeah, it's a preference. Everybody's different.
Yeah. One more thing I was gonna say real quick that I forgot to mention in my cons. Not to like add a con intentionally, but Apple is very well known to take forever to add a feature to iPhone that Android has already had. And I remember recently with the newest the newest Apple conference, the WWDC, that they call it, whatever that stands for, Worldwide Developer Conference, I think. One of the quotes that Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, said was, this was actually during an interview. He said this. He was like, "We're not out to get a new feature first. We're out to get a new feature out the best." And I can see that. But the problem with that is a lot of the features that they don't release until like 7 iPhones later are such small features to begin with. Like, for example, with iOS 18, which isn't out yet, you will be allowed to take an app on your home screen and put it wherever you want. As of right now, Apple only allows apps to go in like order. So like you have a row, and then if you want to drag another app, it just goes right down to the next row. You can't put it like in the middle of the screen if you don't want. They're releasing that option with iOS 18. That feature has been on Android for over 15 years. That to me, there's no perfecting that feature. That's such a small, minuscule thing. There's no purpose to delay that type of thing. There's like, and then they're like, we're introducing like themes, so all your apps can be like the same color. They can be like themed to one shade of color. I'm like, Android's had that also for 15 years. There's things like that. I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand why you were delaying those features. It's not possible to make them better. They're just optimization features. They're just UI features. They're just like, you could have easily with like the iPhone 4 had the option to change your icons wherever, like change your apps, put them in whatever spot you want. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to delay that for over 15 years.
Right.
So it's just like certain features that get delayed on, I will say this, certain features that get delayed that are released on Android, but Apple waits a few generations and then they reveal their version, they do come out better. They do come out more optimized sometimes. And during that time, Android is optimizing it as it gets released. So by the time Apple releases it, it's pretty up to par with what Android already has, or Apple already has. But such a small thing. In particular, like I never understood the app thing, like why you guys were never allowed to move your apps wherever you want. Like that just boggles my mind because there's no doing it better. That's a simple feature. And I just never understood that. But you guys will be getting it next year when the iOS 18 comes out. Meanwhile, I'm just going to be over here organizing all of my apps wherever I want. I can put them in alphabetical order if I want. I can put them in a random order. I can have a single app 5 pages away on scroll through 5 pages and then put it there if I want
to. Right.
Anyway, rant over. That's the biggest rant I have is when they announced that you'll finally be able to move your apps wherever you want. I was just mind blown. I was like, dude, it's 2024. That's been an option for over 15 years. Anyway, you may continue. I will stop interrupting.
Yeah, things like that. One thing I did kind of notice about more on a really technical standpoint with smartphones and with Samsung is Samsung having a little bit bigger of storage capabilities.
Yes.
I mainly did a lot of research on the newer iPhone 15 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy S23, the one that you have.
Yeah. S23 Ultra.
Yeah. I basically just did comparison between those two with storage. I mean, I have a couple years old iPhone. So, because I mean, that's and that's which I was kind of going down more of the road of it's cheaper to do that, because with things like that. But yeah, I have noticed a lot about especially like the S23. It's like more storage, compared to yeah, the iPhone, like, and stuff, and customization, like I already said, and multitasking and split screen.
Oh yeah, you guys don't have multitasking. I forgot.
And
That's another thing they haven't announced yet is multitasking. I can open like 3 apps at once, and they all fit perfectly on my screen.
yeah, I was kind of jealous about that. Stuff like that, advanced features. High refresh rate displays, multiple camera lenses, 5G connectivity.
Well, the iPhone
New
has 5G, and the newer ones do.
Yeah.
But
New
Android had it first. I'm pretty sure. I don't actually know that that's fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if Android had it first.
Oh gosh. I just can't wait to see if like we need to do a poll or something.
Right.
Still.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Apple versus
still.
Android.
Yeah. Which I know, I know this debate obviously has been going on for the past couple of years. Just but yeah, back and forth. But still, it's like I'm always reading comments of iPhone versus Androids.
Oh yeah.
And then just spamming the Android users spamming the GIF of the Android robot hearing the Apple icon on its butt.
But yeah, I sent you that too.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But yeah, things like that. So the main thing I'm kind of I was very curious since I'm mainly not professional wise, but I'm still kind of a beginner at it. But I'm a photographer and I love just camera stuff about photography. Yeah. So I did a lot of research on. So basically, with iPhone and Samsung, I did a lot of camera quality stuff.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they're like very close.
Currently they are neck and neck. The one thing I don't think the one thing I don't think's been on iPhone yet, not that this is like a photography thing. This is more of like a clout thing. Because I've never used this feature, but I like to gloat that it's there, is the times 100 zoom that the Samsung has.
Yeah.
Like I can zoom in, I could go on my phone and I can zoom in times 100. And I see those videos all the time on TikTok where it'll be like, it looks like it's like front row seats at like a Taylor Swift concert. And then like the camera zooms out and like it keeps going and going, and they're like at the bleeders way up top, and they can see like a clear image of the artist. That's Android.
Yeah. Now I have noticed, based on a lot of people doing tests with Samsungs, and obviously I do kind of think it depends because you have to, and just think of it this way, because this will kind of make sense. Even though with like, let's say commercials with Samsung, like you were saying, like let's say in the commercial, somebody's out in the bleeders at a concert and they're like, oh, I want to get a really close look, and they could all the way in.
Right.
And sometimes with commercials, they kind of overdo it in some ways. And what I've noticed with some people doing tests, and some people will actually have the two actual products, the newer iPhone and the Samsung S23, and they'll do photos and video comparisons. And they even have like a handheld tripod thing, and it's like this with two clips, so
right? So you have two cameras,
so they could do it at the same time. And so from what I've noticed is it just depends, and lighting can actually do a whole lot of jacked up stuff. So and from what I've noticed is like this one guy, he actually used the Samsung at a concert, but it wasn't like a stadium wise. It was just one flat, just auditorium kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he was kind of in the middle, so he was kind of at a certain distance, and he tried to get some close-up pictures of an orchestra and the conductor that was doing it. So he was trying to get some really good pictures up close, and he did one with the iPhone. It did decent, and I know for iPhone it's only like 3 times the zoom, so you could go in just a little bit and get some decent videos or something. But yeah, he did with the Samsung, and he took some pictures of it, and he necessarily didn't zoom all the way in, but a pretty good distance.
Yeah.
But with some of the pictures that he got, obviously they didn't turn out as well. Some of them were kind of glitchy. Yeah. Some of them looked a little blurry, like hand motions, things like that. And obviously, too, it's with the bright lights showing up on them, and even with him trying to focus on it, still didn't technically look like crystal as clear or high definition wise,
right?
And things like that. And what I've noticed too was, which is very interesting about comparison between the two, even with both phones doing night photography. So there was one guy in like New York, I think, took pictures of both of them at nighttime, and there was like some neon signs.
Right.
And what I noticed some of the times is with iPhones, they really tend to, how can I say it, tone down some of the colors in a way, and some of the darks.
Yeah.
What I noticed with Samsung, not all the time, but just looking at the video comparisons, is Samsung has a more obviously higher definition and more, what's the word for it? Clarity wise, it's more clarity kind of looks.
Yeah.
So, which I think with that, obviously you can just go on your Samsung and adjust the settings. But just in general, I do think some of the times with Samsung, they kind of don't necessarily get all of the color corrections right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things look a little too bright, or sometimes things look a little too grainy in a way, or just overexposed. That's kind of like another one too. And I do think that's kind of something with Apple. They're kind of more, I would say, if you kind of want to get some good photos, most of the time, Apple does get some pretty good shots. Well, I think Samsung kind of, with the camera settings and the high definition of 4K, or I think they go like bigger, I think, with some of the newer ones, like 8K or something,
Yeah.
But, and I mean, if you think about it, and it's all about preference too. Obviously, people love that kind of stuff. They want higher definition of this, or they want, this, and or higher definitions and better quality.
Yeah.
Kind of things. But I do kind of think also Samsung in like bright daylight, it does try to bring up more brighter colors just in general, like no settings or anything.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's just kind of a camera thing. And even with video. But yeah, I think with iPhones, they kind of have more smoother looks to them, or even just the focus where it's like focusing on you, and it's blurry in the background feature.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the times Samsung does really good at it. So yeah, I think that's just kind of a reference kind of thing. But for me, honestly, I think with some of the past updates, with even with the newer phones, the iPhone, me for as an iPhone user,
Yeah.
I feel like it does really good quality.
Mm-hmm.
And even with, especially in my opinion, having older iPhones, but at the time, you had pretty good, decent quality. And then now, with like the iPhone I have now, if I want to go into video, I can go into like 30 frames per second, or I can go into like 40 frames per second. And
Yeah.
you can obviously tell with the look, the quality of it is really good. And
Yeah.
and obviously, I'm sure Samsung is like, yeah, we've been doing that for a long time. So
Yeah. I just looked on my phone because I was curious about what my phone the video does. I can do HD, FHD, UHD, and 8K. 8K I can only do 30 frames, but everything else I can do up to 60. So, and I'm doing the 8K 30 frames. It's pretty good. It's yeah, that's insane. And then you
Now,
can change like the ratio too.
right. But see, now here's the thing that I was going to kind of mention. It might be not necessarily true or not, but I feel like one of the cons I had for Samsung
Yeah.
is, yeah, technical wise, when it comes to bigger storage, and I think with some of them, they could also go to like a terabyte of storage.
Right.
But the thing is, yeah, with Samsung having really good quality and bigger storage, like a lot more than iPhones
And
today.
and expandable too. Most Samsungs or most Androids allow you to add storage like an SD card.
Right. My thing is, it like, let's say if you're gonna have a terabyte of footage on your phone, and let's say you wanted to record a really good, like maxed out high quality good video for maybe like a minute and a half, that's going to take up a lot of storage, and you're not going to have much is left. Obviously, if you're going to have to get more storage, if you possibly can. But that's the thing, though, I thought of is like, okay, yeah, it's really cool for newer Samsungs to have obviously the announcements, and it's just like, a bigger step in technology with, this or that, or the camera wise, let's put, I don't know, like let's say in the future, it's like, let's put 5 cameras on it, it's like,
I mean, heck, my phone's got 5. Literally, it's got, I think actually one of them might be a sensor, but yeah, no, it's got, oh, no, it's got 5. I don't know if it's going to be able to show it, but it's got, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, and then the 2 big ones on the side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's got a sensor in the middle.
Yeah,
no, those are all lenses. That's fun.
Yeah.
But I had a theory real quick I wanted to share about the storage of the two phones. I think, and it makes sense with Android, right? With cloud storage, you have several different options. You've got OneDrive. You can use OneDrive. You can use Dropbox. You can use several. Apple, you're kind of only limited, to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure you can pretty much only use iCloud, or that's the easiest one that will communicate. And so my theory is that they don't have as much storage physical, so they can sell you more iCloud storage.
It does, yeah.
To me, it makes sense.
Which I know has kind of been like the memes of people recording stuff, or I think Apple did some. Yeah, I actually think not too recently, maybe like a year ago, Apple did some kind of commercial. Some mother was like recording her daughter at like a basketball game, and like right before the ball is about to go in, it goes, "Whoops, out of storage."
Yeah.
And that was kind of the big joke kind of thing. But yeah, obviously in that commercial, they were like, "Okay, we're adding not a lot, but a little bit more backup storage kind of stuff that you can get."
Yeah.
So that way you have like twice as more storage to post whatever, you know.
Right.
I personally, something I think I have a pretty good reason for is, since I'm a photographer, I kind of had to upgrade a little bit to more storage.
Yeah.
Because that gives me more, you know, videos to do if I need to, or more high quality, high definition pictures I get edited and things like that, and able to transfer it. And still at this point, like even for storage on my phone, I think I have like that much left, you know, of just free space.
Right.
And yeah, I don't really play games as much on my phone. I don't really have any other big things on there, and maybe a little bit of music here and there. I don't really use iTunes for a while. For a couple of years, I used just Spotify.
Yeah.
Because it felt more convenient.
Right.
But yeah, that was just my thing with kind of just storage is, yeah, it's cool and all for Samsung to be like, you know, you can have this much storage, but it's just like, okay, but for like the higher quality stuff and you're going bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just like, okay, but you're still going to have a limit. And however you record videos or things, it's like, okay, but that's going to take a big chunk of your storage.
Right.
Because of how high quality it is, or, you know, whatever. And yeah, and I think Apple is still trying to like kind of get to that point.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes they're not as good with storage, I would probably say.
Yeah.
But one thing, another con I've noticed about Samsung, and I've noticed, I kind of actually read a lot on Reddit.
Yeah.
And this actually happened probably like past couple months, is a lot of people having the current-ish like S23.
Yeah.
Which I get it with phones. I think I've noticed some of the times Apple has had this issue. But a lot of the S23s having overheating issues. A lot of them having their phones getting hot, or I noticed with some like what we just talked about, and I was going to mention when you were talking about it, a lot of people having times where, I mean, for if somebody was playing PUBG or something like that on their Samsung, and then playing it for a while, they noticed that it started to get really hot running that. And that was kind of an issue. Or I noticed some guy, he was doing just some, it kind of looked like a Forza racing game or something on his phone. And he said, yeah, I could tell almost for maybe like 30 minutes have passed. The back of the phone has been getting warm in some way. Some people have been, complaining about it, saying that it's been getting overheated.
Right. I've noticed my phone overheats a little bit sometimes. Not very often, but yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll do admit there's been once or twice iPhones kind of have had that issue sometimes, but not all the time. But that just goes with, I mean, not really playing as much games or something. I'm usually just watching like YouTube videos or things like
Yeah.
that.
Watching YouTube or whatever, then it's generally fine, or TikToks. But if I'm playing a game, yeah, it does get pretty hot. I don't play that many games. I play pretty low quality, simple like Bubble Blast or whatever, or like the Brick Breaker. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah. Another one I've noticed, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but it's something that it kind of caught my attention about is a lot of people talking about the newer Samsungs, how they feel heavier compared to iPhones that feel lighter. Plus, I mean, I have noticed with Samsungs, they're putting more of a bigger battery in it, so that way they can have more power and more battery life. And I know that's kind of the big controversial thing about it, is the battery life for that. And I recently watched a YouTube of having the two brand new phones compared together, and fully charged it, both of them at 100%, and then they just let them run for however long. It depends sometimes with tests, but I was very shocked at how good iPhones were in a way. I do get it, because people usually say like iPhones are usually the ones that die so fast, or for me as a user, having my battery at like 68%, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then like an hour later, it's like at 35%, and I'm like, oh yeah. But they kind of did a head-to-head competition on the battery life for those, and I've noticed with the iPhone 15, they kind of been improving a little bit, so it's kind of been in a tight situation. And but towards the end, not to brag, but the iPhone actually did won by still remaining on 1%, only for like a few minutes longer, still dragging on to 1%. But I will admit, the Samsung, I think at some point halfway, Samsung was at like 47% battery, and at that point Apple was at like 44. So you could definitely tell Samsung, it was definitely hanging on for a while. So, and that tells you a lot.
My phone right now, I've been up since roughly 7:30ish, and it's now our time. It's almost 1:00 in the afternoon. My phone battery's at 75%, and I've been on it pretty regularly since 7:30, watching videos and whatnot. I'm at 75%.
Yeah, I think for me, I had it charged at 100 or something earlier, and I didn't really use it a lot. I think I just looked at some messages or something, and I mean, now it's at 90. So I mean, it's doing fine, but that's because I haven't really looked at it.
I usually wake up, and for like the first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm watching YouTube videos or TikTok. So
same.
But I don't put it back on the charger until I go to bed, and it only gets to maybe a little bit below 50% by the time I plug it in, even with heavy usage, maybe 40%. So it's never like at 2% by the time I'm charging it for the night. It's usually at 40, 50%, give or take. So unless I'm on it for like the whole entire day, like 8 hours straight on my phone, it would probably die.
True. I'll probably just say, lastly, from what I've gathered, is a lot of the other Samsung products of like the watches and things like that compared to Apple Watches. A lot of the times Apple has still been kind of better in some ways. Some people have been noticing with some of the Samsungs, like smartwatches, that like some of them do kind of have a little lag to it, or if they're trying to work on something or start a timer, you kind of have to like swipe a certain way, or unless the thing will switch to something else or switch to something.
Right.
And people have mainly said that the Apple Watch kind of feels more fluid and more better quality in a way.
Right. I think Apple had the iWatch or the Apple Watch. I'm surprised they didn't call it the iWatch. The Apple Watch. I think they had their Apple Watch before Samsung did. I think they were like halfway through the first year of having a watch before Samsung unveiled their first one. I could be wrong, but I've got I never use it, but I have the Galaxy Watch 3 or 4. I'm a few generations behind. And I like it. I mean, for an Android user, it makes sense. It's already like intuitive, like kind of how it functions. But definitely, I think Apple spends a lot more time on their watches. I think they tend to include more features faster, which is funny because they don't do that on their iPhone. Like a lot of their health stuff, and it's very hard to get any sort of health monitoring on a device that's not like classified as a medical device. It's very hard to get that approved by at least the U.S. government. They're very specific when it comes to those kinds of things, and I know generally iPhone or Apple, the Apple Watch, will have more heart or health monitoring options first before Android, and they'll have them integrated a little bit better. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Apple Watch. I'm not usually I'm not a smart watch user that often. I like to be, because I like the health features that the Samsung does have. But I mean, it's the same thing with Apple. They have the same health stuff now anyway.
Yeah, same. I'm not much watch, but like but I'm the same way, too, because I'm interested in like how detailed it is for specific health things like that. And so I'm someday, I might want to look into getting one or something. And
the iWatch.
They were they were released April 24th, 2015.
Oh, okay. So they've been around for a while.
Yeah, for a while. I remember that. And that's a good point that I didn't really think about, is like them doing so many updates but not really on the phones.
Right, yeah. They've had whole they've absolutely had conferences, like their reveal conferences, where they reveal several products, and not a single one is iPhone related. At least not new phone. They've totally had it where it's just like related to the watches, the Macs, the tablets, the Apple TV. Which I just want to say, the Apple TV like app where you go to watch movies and TV shows and stuff is horrible. There's nothing on there. They have like 2 or 3 Apple specific shows that are good, but like they definitely need to fix that, because that's a huge. I've seen people complain about that. Their Apple TV, like the shows that they offer, the TV shows and movies they offer. One, you still have to pay for all of them. There's like True. There's like 2 or 3 like Apple included TV shows and movies. But everything else you have to pay for. Which is kind of stupid. You would think that since it's a streaming service, it's not really a streaming service, but they should make it more of a streaming service where they offer content for free, or at a subscription or whatever. But the only show there's 2 shows on there right now that I watch, that I like, and that's the Godzilla show, Monarch, and Silo, which is a pretty cool TV show. But that's it. They don't really have a lot of options that cater to my liking anyway. I'm very sci-fi, like sci-fi and like horror, mystery. They don't have a lot of those options on there. Not anything good anyway.
Yeah, true. I could agree. One of the features I have been kind of using recently. Focus. Bro. Thank you. One of the features I've used recently is screen mirroring. Can if you have a smart TV, but you could just literally just transfer. It's like transferring your phone over the TV, and then you could just screen mirror and do whatever you want. Basically, you could record if you want, or take pictures, or watch YouTube videos on there if you want. But I feel like that was kind of one of the cool things about that on there. I don't really think I got anything else for cons. I mean, those are pretty much
I do have one more con that I've been thinking about.
Go ahead, let it out.
I can come up with more, but one in particular feature that Android has that Apple doesn't. Again, they easily could do this, and it's not hard to implement this feature. Is if I open 473 apps on my phone and I go to the cascading window, which shows all of the apps, I have a giant button below the apps that says close all. I click it, and all of the apps close. Apple, to this day, even with iOS 18, you still got to go swipe up on all the apps that you've opened.
Yep.
People don't realize it. It drains your battery like crazy. If you've got like 40 apps open and you don't fully close them, it drains your battery. So you got to, with Android, you just click the close all button, boom, you're good. You saved all your battery life. It's not hard to incorporate that. Like
I usually have like 3 or 4 open.
Yeah.
And I'm usually in a habit where because I don't know, but if I have like 2 or 3 open, I'll just make sure and just clear those. But
the problem with it is specifically for older users.
Yeah.
Who don't realize that you have to close those apps, or else your battery is going to last all of 5 seconds. You're like, why is my phone? Yeah, it's because Carol, you've had 900 apps open, and because you're an iPhone, you have to sit there and torture yourself by closing them individually by swiping up on every single app. Because there is no close all button where I could have 900 apps and I hit one button, boom, I'm back to doing whatever.
True.
There's certain things like that one. That's a big one because that's a complete battery saver. Absolutely. There's certain just nitpicky things that Apple doesn't have, that there's no perfecting those features. They're just implement them. There's no better way to close all apps. You just make a button or a swipe feature that closes all apps. And there's just certain things that they don't have that without those things, I'll never even look at an iPhone. Right? It's like, why don't you have this feature? Like this is stupid. That feature has been on Android, again, for probably 15 years. And it's funny. One of the things, I can't remember if it was Steve Jobs or Tim Cook. I think Tim Cook's the one that said this, or someone high up at Apple. a few years ago, they said there's a quote that they said where they said, "We're not a tech company, we're a design company." And like that right there, just like I understand that's like a very like meta answer, but bro, you're a tech company. You make technology. You're not a design company. You don't. I mean, yeah, you make things look pretty, but you don't make them function very well.
I can see a lot of Samsung users being triggered by that.
But it's just such a small, like, bro, just add a close all button.
Right.
Because I'm not gonna have. Granted, my grandmother personally does not have an iPhone, but if my 80-year-old grandma had an iPhone, she's not gonna intuitively know that she needs to swipe up on all the apps after she just exits out of them. And I'm not gonna be there to be tech support while I'm swiping up on 900 freaking apps. So it's weird. There's certain features like for older people, for people who don't know smart technology very well. There's kind of a 50-50 mix for why it's better to give them an iPhone and then an Android. Like they kind of both have pretty good basic features that would help for someone who's older. I know my grandparents, both of my grandparents on my mom's side, they both have Androids. They're very basic Androids. They have like 4 functions. And that's it. And it works for them. So, and with that, it doesn't force them to invest and buy other Apple products if they decide to do something else like music, or it's like I want to burn this CD onto my computer and then onto my phone. I can do that all for free. I don't have to have iTunes or any sort of Apple branded product if they've got an Android. Whereas if I had an Apple phone, I'd have to get like iTunes and then a specific iPhone cable, and then you have to buy more. You have to buy more Apple products to enjoy the full Apple experience, whereas you don't have to with Android.
True. I mean, yeah.
And again, customization, which is a pro and a con to certain people. Pro with Apple, it just works with iPhones. Con, if those headphones, like the earbuds, if the earbuds don't fit your ear comfortably, too bad. Go to a competitor. Half the functions won't work now, right? Your options for Apple are iPod or the iEar or whatever they call them. The earpods, that's what they're called. The earpods are Beats. That's it. Those are your 2 options.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't like either one of those, you're kind of screwed. Whereas I can go with anybody. I can go with Skull Candy. I can go with Sony. I can go with Sonos. I can go with Samsung. I can go with Google Pixel or the Pixel Buds. I have so many options. So for me, having more options is beneficial than to having less options, because I don't get overwhelmed with the options I have. I actually like having more options. But if that's something that overwhelms you and you like simplicity, then absolutely, by all means, go for Apple. Their products work, right? I don't have an issue with the fact that the products work. Their products work. They just don't always include the best features, and it takes them 47 years. It's like introducing iOS 37. You can now change your wallpaper. It's like, what? I mean, you can already change your wallpaper, but you get what I'm saying. It's like,
yeah.
Bro, it took them 18 generations of an operating system for you to be able to put your apps wherever you want. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. So, Kira, come on. Okay, go out there. Go have fun. Hello, love. I'm still recording. I'll be right with you. But anyway, it's like
so
for me personally, if you are someone, just as like as an ending quote, if you are our ending statement, if you are someone who is really involved with technology, you want to understand how it works, and you want to understand the options that are out there, and you're not afraid to break the technology and learn how to repair it and fix it and everything, and learn how to do whatever. Absolutely, I recommend Android. Android will give you that opportunity. If you're not tech savvy, which there's no problem being tech savvy at all, or not being tech savvy, there's no problem. If you're not very tech savvy and you like simplicity, you don't like accidentally breaking your phone and not knowing how to fix it, Apple. Apple is your best option. Apple is your only option, but Apple's your best option. But for me, someone who understands more technical, lingo and technical diagrams and whatever, I personally prefer Android because it gives me the ability to do a lot of things that Apple just refuses to do. Also, Android doesn't purposely drain your battery, so you have to buy a new one. iPhone 6.
Oh boy.
But that's a topic for another day because we are out of time. This podcast has gone way too long, and I'm the one that gets to edit it this time. So, yay me!
Hey, I had to do an hour too. So
yeah, it's an hour 33 right now. So you just gave me an extra 30 minutes that I didn't want to have to do. I might just edit it down to an hour. I might just excuse everything and just have it cut at the weirdest time. No, I'm kidding.
No outro or anything.
No anything. It's going to be me talking about the pros and cons of Apple, which is already like 40 minutes, and then it's just going to cut. Like, well, there's time.
Oh gosh. Oh, but yeah, I'll probably just say everybody's different. Everybody has their own opinions. Everybody has preferences and what they want, what they specifically want, all the would say bells and whistles that they want, or people just want something just super simple, get the job done, and it's just like that's all they want. So, but at the same time, the both of us, I could say we're both tech savvy. We're interested in the shiny, glossy stuff, and
yeah, you still have an iPhone.
I know where you live. I know where you live, Jason.
I'm coming to find you.
But in general, it's just like, it's like, yeah, iPhone, Android, whatever you have, or we both have a friend of ours that has a Google Pixel phone, and it's like, huh?
Do we have someone who has a Google Pixel?
Grayson.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought he had a Samsung.
No, he has a Google.
Oh, cool. I'll have to ask him more about that actually, because
he got
has one.
He got a.
Wait, did he? Oh, he got a new phone.
Yeah, not
okay,
like
I didn't.
Not like a totally brand new one, but I mean it's kind of
Right.
like a few generations newer.
Okay.
So
the last thing I recall was that he didn't have a phone, so I wasn't aware that he eventually got a new one recently.
Oh yeah, he finally got one now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to ask him more about that.
It's slightly newer than his past one. So
my stepdad has the Google Pixel 6. I think Google Pixel 8 is the current generation. 8 or 9 I think is the current generation. So yeah. So if I had to guess, it's probably like a Pixel 6 or 7.
Really, really quick, it just popped in my head. Do you remember the when we were in the same science class in high school, and I bought that Windows phone?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Oh man, what a generation for that phone. Holy
you know what's
cow.
what's the funniest thing about Windows phones? One, they're not around anymore. They don't make them.
No.
But two, when they made the Windows phone, they, as like a promotion, they did like a public funeral for iPhone, where they had like a casket that had like the Apple logo on it. And then literally like less than 3 years, the whole Windows Phone completely just went away.
Oh my
And like
gosh.
Bill Gates was there. He was like one of the people holding the casket and dancing. And yeah, nobody liked the Windows Phone operating system because I think it was a version of Windows 8.1, which is all tile based, which was horrible. And then they released that operating system for computers, which was even worse. The only time it was acceptable was technically Xbox. I want to say like the Xbox, like the current Xbox generation or Xbox 360, or no, Xbox One. The original Xbox One from 2015 has had a version of like Windows 8, Xbox 8 or whatever it's called, because it's all tile based. And so that's the only part. That's the only spot where it worked was on a gaming console. But yeah, it was horrid. That's why this topic is not, you know, Apple versus Windows. It's Apple versus Android, because those two actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, they do. Alrighty.
Anyway,
well,
it was a good long discussion, and we're still friends after. We didn't try to kill each other virtually.
exactly.
But
yeah.
There is no the years old question of Apple versus Android is not answerable. Android, but you know, it's all up to personal preference.
You want to get slapped,
right? Virtually just it's an unanswerable question because absolutely it depends on personal preference. You can ask a literal million people their preference, and you will get different answers every single time.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to go for earlier. And it's just personal preference. So, and yeah, people just have their own just styles or, you know, whatever to get the job done. So
if your personal preference is iPhone, it's okay to be wrong. You can be wrong sometimes.
iPhone users, please help me.
Right.
I'm very
much the stereotypical Android user. I do personally think that Apple does some things great, but they do a lot that I don't agree with. Like beyond what we could talk about in this podcast, just in general, there's a lot of stuff I don't like about Apple products. But I'm a very stereotypical Android user. I will dog on Apple absolutely if you give me the chance, and you gave me the chance today, so thank you. Anyway, that does it for us today.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, viewers, if you're still watching at this point, make sure to like and subscribe. That'll help us just get more insights and views on this channel, and we want to hear feedback. Obviously, with this episode, we definitely want to hear what you have.
Oh, absolutely. Comment. We're gonna put a poll. I want to do the poll. We're gonna do Apple versus Android, and have, you know, tell us why in the comments, and be as descriptive as you want. You can do plot. You can do plot pinpoints or whatever. You can do whatever you want. You can write whole articles. You can write a whole doctorate thesis on why one is better than the other. Just we'll react to it. Yeah. We'll watch and we'll read every comment.
Yeah,
watch like 40,000 comments. Like, oh gosh.
Yeah, we want to know, and we want to read, and I mean, obviously, just be respectful towards each other. So
yes, no arguing or fighting in the comments, please.
Yeah, this is just something we just want to get everybody's opinions about, and just see what you know.
I will put the ban hammer on people if I have to.
So, but. Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you for joining us in this very different kind of, episode this time. Than
long. Do I have to edit now?
So, just kidding. But anyway, as we always say, drink coffee in moderation And don't believe everything you hear on the internet, no matter what AI tries to tell you, because it just gathers information. That's all it does. Hope you have a good one, and we will see you later.
Peace.
Peace.